meaningful movers. Welcome back to Moving with Meaning, the podcast, where actions have meaning, words have meaning, and we open up the conversations to discover what's your next move. I'm your host, Krystal. In today's episode, we are going to really tune in with our senses. Is there a difference between emotions and sensations? Well, let's talk about it. But you know how we do it here. We need to set that theme, so let's go ahead and do that. The word of the day is stimulation. This is the action to create activity for growth and development. Not something to avoid or shy away from, wouldn't you say? Women are some powerful creatures. I might be a little biased in that, but let's see. It's all about the messaging. And that's enough of me talking. How about we introduce our guest? And there's no one better to do that than herself, Biz. Why don't you give the people a bit of background about yourself and what you're going to share with us today?
All right. Well, first of all, Krystal, thanks for having me on the podcast. I appreciate you. Well, being a podcaster myself, I get the work that goes into it, but I also appreciate you having me here. I am a therapist licensed in Maryland and Delaware, as well as a life coach for highly sensitive women. I've been doing the coaching for about 3 years, but I've done the mental health stuff for maybe 15 years, long time. But today I would like to talk about what it means to be highly sensitive. And you talked about sensations and emotions. And I think for highly sensitive women, there can be a misconception of like, it just means you get irritated all the time or people bug you. But really, this is a genetic trait. This is something that we are born with, something that we have to contend with. It is something that is a part of our being. And if we can learn how to be highly sensitive people in the world that's not so sensitive, it can really make your journey a lot easier and more comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I was just going to ask you, that was going to be my first question. What is highly sensitive? What does that mean?
Yeah. And so for people that don't know, and just for clarification, it is there, I think like 30% of the population is considered highly sensitive. And this goes across all cultures. It's even been found in animals, like this trait of high sensitivity. Basically, it means like the parts of our brain that light up, that get activated by sensory information like sound, touch, taste. What are the five senses?
I think hearing, what was it? Yeah.
We process that at a much deeper level. So the sensory information that's coming at us, it almost feels like the volume is turned up. So we feel it more deeply, more internally. We feel it and react to it in a more sensitive way, in a deeper way than someone who's not highly sensitive. That's lovely because we're deep processors. We love connection. We love nature because it can just fill us up to being outside and seeing the beautiful colors and smells and the scenery. It can also be overwhelming. I'll speak for myself. Like if I go to the mall or a very crowded place where I don't know most of the people, the information that's coming at me feels almost, well, not even almost, I get overwhelmed very easily. And there's a part of me that says like, we got to get out of here. Or one, either I don't want to go, or when I'm there, I can tolerate it for a very short period of time before I need to come back home and rest and recharge. And that's another piece of high sensitivity, is that we need more time to sort of reset, kind of like when you reboot a computer. Like we need that quiet time to re-energize, to feel more engaged again. So you'll find, especially for highly sensitive people who are also introverts, which is me, we need a lot of alone time, a lot of downtime in order to have that energy and capacity to engage with other people, because we're deep. We want to go deep. We want to get into the conversation. And when you don't have the energy to do that, that can feel overwhelming too.
Oh, yeah. As you were talking about that, I was just thinking about this. I'm like, oh my gosh, like empaths, people who can really discern and feed off of the energy of others.
Yes.
It can be exhausting. And I talked to like 2 other people about this. So my husband and my god sister, and they're both the same. So my husband, like as you were talking about yourself and things like that, that's him 100%. Like I said, COVID was the best thing that happened to him. He was like, I love this. I love being around you guys. I'm good. I can do this forever. This is fine. My god sister, she can appear as an introvert to others, but when she's around her family, she's good. And so when she goes to other social events or anything like that, she does do that. She's like, I have to go rest. I'm tired. I'm feeding off of all of this energy that everyone is giving me. I need to take a breather. I need to step away. So
yeah,
it's interesting that when you're around folks that you don't know and around folks that you do know, that also wavers on how much you can take and can't take, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Also, even when you're around negative people, even when I know negative people and I'm like, I'm about to go around them. Yeah, I have to get all gussied up in my head. Like I'm already preparing for the negative that's coming my way. It's interesting because it's like, okay, do I want to choose to be in this environment or not? And then if I do choose to be in the environment, why am I doing this?
Yeah. And how do you take care of yourself if you have to be, right? Yeah.
You said that it was like a biological trait. Tell me about that.
Yep. I am no neuroscientist, but apparently the research has been done that highly sensitive people, that the parts of their brains related to sensory input are more reactive than for people that don't have the high sensitivity trait. As I said, it's something that you're born with. Like in my case, I really didn't know anything about it. I'm older, and this is a relatively new researched area for psychology and neuroscience, but I didn't know anything about high sensitivity. I think for a lot of my life, people were like, you shouldn't feel so much. You shouldn't be so sensitive. You shouldn't take that so personally or whatever. That there was a lot of negative messaging around being sensitive versus, oh, this is just who you are. This is something that you can learn to care for yourself. And when you know what you need and how to take that time away and recharge, it makes life so much easier. For me, a lot of my sensitivity was related to touch. So like certain fabrics. As a little kid, I can remember being put in like kind of starchy dresses or wool sweaters. And it was almost as if like it was so uncomfortable for me. Like had I had the power to say, I'm not going to wear this, I would have gone upstairs and changed, and maybe I did that later in my life. But I can buy my own clothes now. So I buy things that are comfortable and I can make sure that the textures feel right against my skin. But for me, it really almost felt like torture.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that. When people say sensitive, we don't even associate that with senses, right? We don't.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you said that because I immediately was just thinking straight up emotions. I wasn't thinking when you was like, why are you so sensitive? Taking things personal. I'm like, oh, that's an emotion. And then you gave an analogy and said, oh, from a sensation perspective, touch was a big thing for me. I didn't even think of it that way. That's so crazy.
And I think for each person, it presents differently, right? Like for me, touch was a big thing. For you or for someone else, it could be sound. It could be just sort of environmental, like a lot going on, like you're just taking in so much. Yeah. So for each person, it shows up in its own unique way.
Yeah. You said too, what was also that I caught on that as well, what I heard and how I'm going to restate it is it's not only for people to all recognize that they're highly sensitive, but to also have others recognize that in other people as well.
Yes.
And to be mindful of that.
Yeah.
So do you run across a couple of people that you have to work through with that as well?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of, at least what I do in terms of my work is validating for my clients. I only see adults, but whether it's their child or themselves, like if you are highly sensitive, here are the things to know about it. And if you are feeling overwhelmed all the time or feeling as if you were really never fully seen or heard as a child, like here are some tools, we work together to help them sort of feel more at ease in themselves. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think that it's a part of it is just having the skill set or just the knowledge to explain that to someone. What you just explained is difficult for someone who is coming from a completely different perspective to understand, like you said, what you are sensitive to. what matters
Yeah.
to you. Sometimes there's no why. Like if I was to ask you, like, why? What was going on with the wool?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, it was scratchy on my skin, right? That felt bad. That did not feel good. But why was my skin sensitivity a big thing? I don't know that. I still have very sensitive skin. Yeah, it just happened to be how it presented. Who knows? Maybe something happened when I was a baby that,
Mm-hmm.
that there were things that I wore that I didn't like, but I couldn't say it. So
Same
I had
thing.
to
Yeah.
tolerate it. It's hard to know how the pieces fit in. I think the key is understanding yourself so that you can meet yourself with compassion versus like, I shouldn't be so sensitive. I should learn how to tolerate this. I should be better at being out in crowds, whatever it is, to be able to recognize for yourself, this is harder for me than the average person. So how can I be kind to myself around that and take care of my own needs when I need to?
Yeah. When we talked earlier, you did mention that there is a lot of, we'll internalize and then we actually turn on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
What are some examples that you've seen people do when they'll, like, what are some signs of people turning on themselves?
Yeah, so a lot of negative self-talk. So like maybe repeating something you've heard as a child, like, oh, I shouldn't be so sensitive. I should just suck it up, or I should just push through this versus, oh, this is really hard for me. How can I take care of myself even if I have to do this hard thing, like go to a concert that's really loud? Could I maybe find some earplugs, or could I find ways that I can step outside and go to the bathroom and just give myself a little break from the noise and the crowds? But I think sort of that internalized dialogue of shaming yourself or criticizing yourself for just how you are. You didn't ask to be highly sensitive if you are, right? It just is something you were born with. And to be able to distance yourself or restory the things you've been told about the sensitivity to, find a different dialogue within. That's my feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. I like how you said the sensitivity is our strength. How do we go about interacting with others and deep thinkers for folks who are highly sensitive and those who aren't? How do we try to navigate those conversations and interact with those people?
Yeah. Well, and sometimes people don't get it, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're feeling overwhelmed or feeling like you're not connecting with somebody and you share like, hey, I'm highly sensitive. I love the deep connection, or I don't do small talk really well because it just doesn't feel like I'm right there with you. Other people who aren't highly sensitive might not understand. You can do your best to try to explain that it's just who you are and we're born with these traits. I think finding the places where you feel most comfortable in the world, like whether it's your friend group or finding a support group outside of a typical friend group, or connecting with other empathic, sort of deep thinkers, even if they're not highly sensitive, can be really, really helpful. To just be in community with others who are kind and understanding and welcoming is really helpful.
That's good. I like that last piece. Got me. Welcoming.
Yeah.
That has such a compassionate sound to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love that sound. And so when you talk about that piece and welcoming, it brought me to another point that you mentioned before when we were talking. Highly sensitive people can see things that others may be missing. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think, at least in my case and other highly sensitive women and men that I've talked to, we're really very good at sort of picking up very subtle clues on how other people are thinking or feeling. And we're constantly sort of processing that. I can tell you just for myself, there have been times where it happens even when I'm watching a TV show and I'll say to my husband, oh, like, I don't know, I watch the show and I'm looking at the person and I'm picking up on how they're feeling, and then I'll sort of predict what might happen next. And my husband will be like, how did you know that? How did you figure that out? But because for me, it almost feels like I can get inside somebody's head even if I don't know them. And I know that's not really true, but and I may misjudge what they're thinking or feeling, but those small emotional, whether it's physical or verbal cues, highly sensitive people are listening and paying attention to those on a very deep level so that they can sort of read a room pretty quickly in terms of the vibe, the feeling, the energy. We really sort of have this sort of attuned energetic awareness of other people's state of mind and being. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that definitely can come in handy.
Mm-hmm. And it can be hard too. Like if you're recognizing there's some conflict that's going on and nobody's talking about it, like that can be really uncomfortable too.
Yeah. So what is the difference between deep thinking and overthinking?
I would say overthinking is when we are sort of working through every possible obstacle to a problem. This is just my own layperson's description. Like if I am considering moving, right? I'm going through every possible thing that either might be good or bad about it, but that I'm going in so deep that I'm like predicting, well, if this happens, then I'm going to do this. And if this happens, then I'm going to do this. Or this would be a very good reason to move, but this would be terrible, because it's almost like you can't let it go until you feel like either something happens and you get through it, or something bad happens and you figure out what to do, right? But there's just this constant like worry, I guess, with overthinking.
Yeah.
Where to me, deep thinking is we're just processing. We're just taking it in. We're listening. We're feeling it. We're thinking about how we feel about it. And then we come to some understanding of, oh, okay, this is how that lands in me. To me, that's what deep thinking is.
Okay. So it's like you're able to draw a conclusion and be fine with what was drawn, and not going back through it and saying, okay, why am I feeling okay with that decision that I just made?
Right. Because I think sometimes overthinking gets us stuck. And, I often hear clients say like, oh, I was spiraling, right? You're just like round and round and round, versus like, okay, I'm just working to gain a better understanding of what's happening here. There are times when, there's this expectation you're going to have an answer, you're going to be able to respond or come up with some idea. Like to me, it takes me time to think it through, think about my response. And so sometimes I have to say, let me get back to you. Like I need to process this so I can come back to you with how I feel, because it doesn't happen that fast for me.
Yeah.
To me, that's deep thinking, right? It just takes a while for all of it to go tick, 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 and work through my system.
You're helping me understand my husband a lot better, having more compassion and consideration for him, because I can draw conclusions pretty well, like really well in the moment. And it may be just because the environment that I've had to be in, just being a mother, I have had to make these conclusions. They ask you all kind of questions right at the spot, and you're like, I had to do it in work. I had to make really snappy decisions and all those things. And just with being the oldest in my family, or just being the one who my family just looks towards a lot, I've just had to be that person. And I don't think he has. I don't think he'd ever have to do that. So I would say he's highly sensitive as well. And now that we're talking about it, just as you're describing yourself, and then you talk about processing, we've had to go to counseling because I'm like constantly pushing him to, I was like, come up with an answer right now. And he's like, I can't do that. I am not like you. He'll say, I need to give me a minute, and then I'll come back and talk to you about it. Now, here's what's interesting. Is it hurts me when he has to do that. Sometimes I feel like that. I would tell him, okay, what if I did that to you? Like, are you okay with me having to come back with you on a question that is so important to you and you have to wait a minute? He would say, yeah, I would. But I don't think I ever put him in that position before for him to be like, okay, this is how I feel. And I did. I purposely did do this just to see what would happen. And I probably shouldn't have done this. So I'm sorry, babe. But I did because I wanted to see, because I never did that to him. So, and I was like, I just want him to understand how it felt to me, emotionally. And I did that to him, and I was just quiet. He said, well, can you answer? And I go, well, no. You remember when you wouldn't answer me and you had to think about it? Well, I do too. Let's see how long it takes for me to get back to you on that. And you know what? He was like, oh, okay. He was fine. He was totally okay with it. He really was okay with that. So I had to really come to a point where I was like, wow, I need to understand him a little bit better. And I really do need to have a little bit more compassion with him.
Yeah. 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 Well, but it can be hard to understand. It sounds like you can come to decisions quickly. And for you, the processing is faster and you can get to the end before he can. But yeah, for some of us, it really does take time. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've been like, oh, that's what I should have said. Like, that's how I would have liked to express myself, or gone over a conversation where I wish I had said, like, give me a minute so I can come back and really give you my full self in a response versus just come up with a quick answer.
I mean, I think that's great in the workplace and in, like, both personally and professionally. I think that's a great skill set to have, is to be able to, one, be the person to say, I need a minute to respond to you, and two, to be the person on the other side receiving that and being okay with that.
Yeah.
And that interaction is so powerful with just anybody in any kind of setting. So you keep saying, and I so apologize that I was like so enthralled in just that other piece that we just last talked about.
Oh, no, that's fine.
So you talked about self-care and how we do things to take care of ourselves. So what are some kind of ways that we can do that and support ourselves in this highly overly stimulated world we live in?
Yeah. Well, I think honoring what you need is really important. So recognizing the smaller signs of, if you're highly sensitive and you get overwhelmed quickly or easily, paying attention to your own body and emotions early on. So you're like, okay, I'm getting full. Okay, what can I do? For some people, that means just like going to the bathroom for a few minutes and taking a deep breath. What helps me the most is, sort of getting out in nature, being in a very quiet place. So if I walk a lot, and I don't walk with headphones, I just walk and notice nature and sounds and birds and the breeze and the temperature. And to me, that restores my inner world of peace and calm. Another piece is getting enough sleep, right? Taking care of yourself so you're well rested and not already starting the day overwhelmed and tired. But also, I think, again, a big piece of it is the compassionate piece, like having understanding for yourself so you can learn to know what you need. If this is a new concept for you of being highly sensitive, and you're like, hey, maybe I am. Understanding your own system, like what it is that pushes you over the edge. So getting to know what things in your environment are too much for you, and, figuring out how to limit them, or bringing yourself into it in small ways. I'm going to go to this event, but I'm only going to stay for 30 minutes or things like that, to just really give yourself a chance to either step away or find ways to really care for yourself.
I like that. I think there's power and there's strength in all of that you're saying. Yeah, I agree with that. Just setting small goals is really good.
And boundaries, right?
Yeah.
Small boundaries, right?
Yeah. I just talked to another guest before about this, and it was like, this is a way of protecting a relationship. It's not a negative thing. It's, again, messaging, right?
Yes.
That's the messaging, the negative messaging that happens. So
yes.
I like that. I really like that. And I like that continued, you just overtook the theme. I don't even know what to tell you, because compassion is what we go with today.
There you go. Well, I think it's an important skill for everybody.
100%. So, Viz, tell me, do you have any golden nuggets to add that catch up, just to recap?
I think what you mentioned before briefly, that being highly sensitive can be a challenge, especially if this is sort of a new concept and you were not supported throughout childhood and being highly sensitive. But to know that it is a gift. Like, the world needs sensitive humans. It really does. Like, they are the creatives. They're the ones that are the deep thinkers. They're the innovators. And not to say that non-sensitive people or regularly sensitive people aren't all those things too. But when you look at sort of history, I was reading, I'm forgetting the name of the book, but they were talking about all these very creative souls who are highly sensitive, and we bring a lot to the world. And so knowing that being highly sensitive is a gift and a strength, like, I think that is my golden nugget. If you can hold that in your heart, that's really important. Absolutely.
The gift that just keeps on giving. I like that. That's the episode today. This was a highly stimulating conversation. Did you get a sense of your strength? Have you noticed that you've become your biggest saboteur? I think the message is just as important as the awareness. Sometimes we find it so difficult to articulate the effect that a memory, emotion, or interaction has on us. I mean, if it was easy, then we wouldn't be having this discussion, now would we? We must try, and in those trials, we will find what works with which audience and where our comfort level is. If we don't push our limits, we'll never know how far we can go or the impact we'll make. You know what they say, practice makes perfect. That's why I appreciate Biz for sharing her experience, insight, and practices to giving ourselves grace and embracing our sensitivity. Now, here's a tongue twister. If Biz's story has found its way to you and you've had similar sensational simulations, I want to hear all about it. I love it all, and so will someone else. Before I let you go, Biz, why don't you go ahead and remind the people who you are, where they can find your resources, or reach out to you.
Excellent. So I am Biz Cush. The Cush is spelled with a C, but you can find me at elizabethcushcoaching.com. You can find my podcast there, but you can also find resources for highly sensitive women. I'm also a therapist, and you can find me if you are in Maryland or Delaware and looking for therapy. I'm at progressioncounseling.com.
Good. You must be a therapist with that kind of voice. Very soothing.
Oh, you're sweet. Thank you.
I'll make sure to include all of Biz's resources and connections in the episode description, as well as on my website's resources page, movingwithmeaning.com. Make sure you guys subscribe to the show, Moving With Meaning, the podcast, and tap that alert bell so you know when these episodes drop. I'm on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and YouTube Music. Please share, like, repost, and follow. Tag someone. We are creating a community here. Quick housekeeping before you go. Follow me on Instagram at movingwithmeaning82. Also, connect with me on LinkedIn. I do dabble in TikTok at Krystal B. Clark. The YouTube channel is up. Kindly run over there and have a look or two. Links are in the episode. Alrighty, I'm Krystal on Moving With Meaning, the podcast, reminding you to take it one step at a time. All moves have meaning. Check y'all later.